Life doesn't move in straight lines. It twists, turns, and surprises us along the way. On Better Things Ahead, we talk with people who have walked those winding paths. Each story reminds us of the lessons, hope, and promise of better things ahead. Welcome in as we continue our series on serving. My name is Matt. I'm the Executive and Discipleship Pastor here at Ridgecrest. And this week, I'm joined with our Senior Pastor, Michael Estes, as well as our special guest, Tommy Watrous, who is a leader in our local community for a ministry we call Jackson Street Ministry. And so thank you both for being a part of our podcast today. So to kind of get us started, Tommy, I'll let you just share a little bit about specifically Jackson Street Ministry, how you got involved, what it is, and some of the things that you guys do part of that ministry.
Okay, sure. The way I got involved, it was my wife and I had just taken a class on experiencing God, and we were...
Was it the Blackaby study?
It was the Blackaby study, and a statement that hit me really strong was, you know, we need, in order to experience God, you need to go where He's working. And so if you don't know where He's working, find someone that does and pastor up, meet up with them. And my daughter was a friend of the guy who was leading Jackson Street Ministry.
Okay.
So we got introduced, and I said, can I join you one night? And I never left. It was an interest, and some place I never thought I'd be, but it was, the first night I was there, I literally was standing there not knowing what to do. Shy as could be, just, wow, handing out red beans and rice to people, trying to be helpful, but I could see something there. So Jackson Street Ministry, we are a group, as many volunteers as we have right now, that's how many churches have volunteers that go. We've got about 5 or 6 regular volunteers today. When I first started, it hadn't changed much. We go around. We have certain spots in Jackson. At first, I thought we met at a place called Jackson Street, but that's not it. We are on the streets of Jackson.
I was going to say the same thing with my next question, was because whenever I first moved to this area and I heard about Jackson Street Ministry, I was like, well, what's going on in Jackson Street, you know? And then realized, no, it's Jackson Street Ministry.
That was so funny. So anyway, we meet with homeless people, and, you know, our primary goal is to spread God's word. That's the reason why we meet. We don't do anything, well, we visit with them, but we don't do anything until we read God's word. We pray with them and we talk with them. And then afterwards, we'll hand out stuff. Today, we've got about 4 or 5 regular stops that we go to. These stops have changed over the years. It's been really interesting, the dynamics of stuff. So when I first started, it was summer of 2017. We go out on Wednesday nights. Someone will pack bags at our church, and which is Broadmoor. They fund it, fully fund it. We go pick up the bags, load up the bus, and we go out to meet these people at various areas. We go to several stops, and we get out and visit with them, read the Bible, pray with them, and then we hand out food, and then we usually have clothes, bug spray, batteries, flashlights, stuff like that we may hand out to them, or different needs. You'd be surprised at some of the stuff we've handed out to them, even canes lately. It's been kind of funny. But in about 2020, it was the fall of 2019, the guy that was leading it asked me, he said he wanted to step down. He'd been leading it 5 or 6, 10 years, I don't know. Asked me if I'd be willing to step up and lead it. And I said, well, I don't know, you know. And so I thought about it, prayed about it, and said, why not? You know, it can't hurt. Just so happened COVID hit, and he took that time to split because he had elderly parents. Nobody knew anything about COVID at that time. So we just kind of, you know, it was kind of funny. I said a joke. I think the only time this ministry had missed was Hurricane Katrina. And another hurricane that swept through. So it's been around many years. From what I understand, it started a lot differently. People wouldn't go out till like 10 o'clock at night because they said, if you're out and about at 10 o'clock at night, you're probably homeless. Now we start at 7 and get home by 10. So it's a lot different.
Sure.
But it only missed 2 nights. The first year I took it over, we missed 3 times. We had the curfew for COVID.
Yeah.
We had an ice storm, and we had a tornado come through while it was our time to be there. And I was like, wow. But anyway, so the COVID changed it dramatically, and I was trying to navigate it, just brand new, trying to lead it. We weren't supposed to get out. I didn't want our church to be on the news. We didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to happen. So we kind of stopped meeting. We would still stop at our regular stops and hand out bags, but we didn't get off the bus because, I mean, to be honest with you, we didn't know what COVID was, and we just had no clue. We found a lot of new people that way. We found one guy that, you know, he was quiet, ignoring us. He wasn't ignoring us, but he just would never really respond to us. But we made it a point to stop, see him every Wednesday. And today he's back with his wife. When Jackson had the water shortage, he was down there packing bags to send up to help Jackson and packing water. So you do have a few good stories like that. But we seen a lot of prayers answered. We were meeting behind First Baptist Church. We'd start there about 6:30, just our internal group, and we would, I call it take care of business, and then pray up before we leave. And then our first stop was Jackson Eudora Welty Library, and then we'd hit the other spots, and we'd see probably 20, 30 people there at the library. Well, First Baptist sent us a note, and they knew we were meeting back behind the church for many years, but they asked us if we could please not do it anymore because the homeless from the library and just, I think, young people, and it was starting to create a couple of issues. We knew the library was going to be torn down, so we'd been praying, where are we going to go when the library, I didn't want to get a permit from the city. That's just a lot of stuff. And First Baptist sent us a letter and said, hey, we would love to have you meet in this other parking lot that we have, and you can even serve there.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was a prayer.
That's a great
right
answer.
There.
Yeah.
It was just, you see little things like that that have happened throughout the years. Just recently, if someone asks us for a Bible, we always give them one. We had so many Bibles, I never thought to take inventory, and we ran out. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Next thing I knew, I had more Bibles coming in. I had Bibles coming in from North Mississippi. I've got 200 or 300 Bibles. All I did is just prayed about it, and bam, there they were. I mean, I asked a couple questions.
Sure. God does that kind of stuff, doesn't he?
It really does.
Yeah.
It's really neat. We've seen a lot of stuff like that happen. But anyway, that's what we do in a nutshell. We meet at First Baptist parking lot. It's on the corner of State Street and High Streets where we first start meeting. And then we go to various locations throughout the city. And like I say, we just talk, and it's kind of funny. If someone walks up late, 9 times out of 10, their first question is, did I miss church?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of, do you still have food? Their first question is, did I miss church?
Yeah.
So they know what we're there for. They also know we're going to feed them. But that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So a question that I have, because I've had the opportunity to do some street and homeless ministry through Beautiful Feet Ministries in Fort Worth, Texas. You might be familiar with them.
I've heard of them.
There are a lot of different challenges when it comes to a ministry like this. When you go out, what is, like, if you were telling somebody that was thinking about participating in a ministry like this, what are some of the biggest challenges you guys face as you go out and try to share and then feed people? Are there things that people need to be aware of when they step into a ministry like that?
Well, I mean, Jackson is one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. The area that we're in, we don't feel too dangerous. We do hear gunshots occasionally in the distance.
Sure. Yep.
There are agitated people. The number one thing I think to be aware of is to expect the unexpected. There's a lot of mental illness there. I mean, it's there's the group that went with us this past week. One guy was trying to reach out to this one person. We knew he was a volatile person. He's harmless. I don't quite know his story. We've just recently come across him, but he's very agitated, very hyper, very high-strung, and he kept following him around. Of course, we were all keeping our eye on him, just watching. little things like that. If a group comes out with us, we try to make it a rule, don't walk off by yourself around the corner. We've never had an incident that we've ever felt at harm. And ironically, if something does happen, the homeless people will stand by our side. One night our bus broke down. We needed a new battery. They wouldn't leave until we got our bus started because they wanted to make sure we were safe. But I always tell people, keep an open mind. Most of the time, the people we minister, and it's not all homeless. There are a few people that actually have some housing, but they are borderline. They know why we come. They come to listen to the word most of the time. We've got one guy, he'll come to 2 or 3 spots with us. When we first met him, he wouldn't talk to us. And there's a couple of other people, when we start speaking and reading the Bible, they'll start yelling and hollering off in the distance and cussing, stuff like that. But if we're not reading the word to them, they're quiet. They're standoffish. And now this guy, we don't stop there anymore, but when we see him, he knows who we are, but he takes our bags, and he will actually carry on a little conversation with them. And so we just, that's our focus, is we continue to push. We don't not give someone something. If someone doesn't want something, fine, we back off. But we don't ever stop offering. We want to show God is love, and he never gives up. That's kind of what we want to do.
So you mentioned kind of walking through that COVID transition and all those kinds of things. How have you seen street ministry change kind of post-COVID? Have you seen, because I know a lot of times in our culture right now, we're talking about, economic, uncertainties and things like that. Have you seen an increase of individuals on the street? Is it kind of the same, or what does that kind of look like?
It's been a little more.
Yeah. Okay.
Before COVID, we were packing about 100 bags to go out. During COVID, we were packing maybe up to 60, and we even started running down frontage road at 55 just to hand stuff out, trying to get rid of it, and we were doubling up. We were probably seeing around 30. After COVID, it slowly started building up, and now we're packing 96 to 100 bags again. It does seem to be a little more volatile, and from what I've talked to people in other shelters that have joined us a couple of times, they've kind of seen the same thing. It's just a little different type of crowd, if you will. Nothing bad. It's just different people. So maybe around, because they're transient. There's one guy that we used to see every week, and most of the reason why he showed up was just to cause trouble and try to dispute what we were saying. We hadn't seen him in months now. I have no clue where he is. They could be in jail. They could have moved. We just don't know. But it has creeped up a little bit. We are starting to see more. We are in a focused downtown area, so we probably hit, I think, a 10th, maybe. I don't know what the official statistics are, but there's a lot of homeless people. Like off Highway 18, down Terry Road. We don't go down that way, so just primarily time.
Sure.
We only have 3 or 4 hours to do it in.
You mentioned a couple times the word relationship and seeing the same people over and over and over again, and then also the idea that like a lot of homeless street ministry is very transient because people come and go. They move from one place to another. They do end up in jail sometimes. Sometimes they get off the street. Like there's all kinds of things that go on. Can you tell us about a time where maybe like you saw a relationship grow over time and then ultimately kind of turn into something that, I don't know, was like transformative for them or for y'all?
I can think of one person in particular. There's many examples, but there's one guy in particular, the one that I told you about would have nothing to do with it. All of a sudden, I remember specifically one night he was asking one of our volunteers, "Can you look at this? Tell me." We looked at it. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Maybe he got bit by a mosquito or a spider. I don't know. And then after that, for about 2 or 3 weeks, we didn't see him. So I was considering doing a wellness check. He's actually has a subsidized living. He's like on disability and all of that, but he comes to see us. Come to find out, he got bitten by brown recluse.
Yeah.
And is in the UMC emergency room. Then he got transferred to another area, and then they just let him go. And he had a spot on his back, probably about this big,
Yeah.
that it had eaten into him, but it was right. There was no way any person could reach it on their own.
Yeah.
And he was scared, and he called me. I don't give my number out to many, but he did have mine. And my wife was a nurse, and so we'd go to his place and treat it. And after that, he would ride his bicycle downtown to our church, from downtown to our church. He, I can't tell you how many times, and he relies on us. He's actually just got out of the hospital again yesterday. He slipped and broke his ankle.
Oh, man.
But, stuff like that. There's a few others that kind of depend on us. I told you about the one guy we found during COVID. He was just a single person by himself. He would sleep at Stew Pot. It'd be pouring down rain. He'd be soaking wet, but he would never accept anything. He just didn't want anything. And one of the guys that was going out with us from Stew Pot to help people find housing, he is now working for the police department again. He was a police officer, went to do outreach work, and then went back to the police department. This guy went and talked to him and said, "I'm ready to turn my life around." And he started quoting things that we've been talking about.
That's awesome.
And it was just a godsend because he got his paperwork. He had to get his birth certificate from Florida, which takes months. He had it that week.
Wow.
Went to the driver's license with no IDs except for one. You're supposed to have two. The lady just so happened he had them pulled out. The lady said, "Let me see your envelope." It was addressed to him. He had this. She said, "I'll count that." Little thing, and he ended up with his wife the next week. He was scared to call her because he was come to find out he was on parole and had violated it. He called the parole office. I think it was in Florida, maybe. Said, "Whatever the consequences, I'm ready to face them." He says, "Your parole has expired. You're a free man." And it was such a beautiful story. And he got his hair all cleaned up. And so and then a lot of people will come ask us for a lot of personal stuff, personal help. We know at least half of them by name, if not more.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if someone, you kind of mentioned this at the beginning with the Blackaby study, and, I love that quote of, see where God's working and join him. And, so if someone's listening or watching, this podcast and they are kind of thinking about getting involved in some type of, homeless street ministry, whether it's here locally with Jackson Street or on a bigger picture in their own communities, what would you tell them? What's some advice you would give them kind of looking and stepping into that?
Sure. I actually met with someone from Hattiesburg, probably about a month or so ago. They are trying to start a homeless ministry at their church in Hattiesburg. My wife's sister and mother goes to that church, so they told them to come up here, and we met. They met with Shower Power because they want to do a grander scale than what we're doing. We're mobile. We have one focus in mind. They wanted to do a little more like help them. But one thing we always do if we go to a new site, you have someone knock at your door. You don't want someone knocking at your door and just say, you put their foot in the door and say, "I'm going to tell you all about Muhammad." And you'll listen to them if they ask you. And so that's what we do, because even though they're homeless, that's their personal space.
Yeah, you're right.
And so anytime we find a new site, which we do a lot, we will always first ask them, "Hey, this is who we are. Do you mind if we come and read God's word to you and then give you a little bit of food?" We always ask them. Get to know them, don't just bust up in them and say, "Hey, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to change you," because they can change, but history has shown and experience has shown that there's not a lot of change. Why there's no change, I don't know. That's really not our focus. But I would advise them to just, number one, meet them where they are. They're there for a reason. I don't care why you're there. Let's just talk.
Yeah.
They'll open up if they want to. It's okay to ask them, but most of the time I don't ask. I just try to talk to them. Then once I get to know them, I may be like, well, tell me your story, But be their friend, talk to them. Unfortunately, you probably do have to have a little something to offer them,
Yeah.
But like I say, people have come to us before. It was pouring down rain one night. We were handing out the food, and the man told me, hey, I'll take this bag, but I want to go somewhere where we can read the Bible, because a lot of them, that's all they get. But yeah, just if you're starting it, just I would say the number one thing, whatever plan you have, you'll probably have 20 more afterwards. Mm-hmm. You can't follow a prescribed plan. It changes volatilely all the time. Things always change. For instance, Mississippi's new law that they have concerning homelessness, we've seen that impact different sites, different people. They really weren't enforcing it at first, kind of selectively enforcing it now, but there are specific areas that we've had to go to and change where we're meeting because of that. So you just have to be adaptable.
Yeah, I think.
Answer?
Yeah, I think that's a great response. Because I heard a couple things. One, being relational first and foremost. That when you're going into, whether it, this translates to any ministry, right? When you're going into their home, building in that relationship, so there's trust, and you opens that door to have that, and then the flexibility piece, I think is great, because to your point, I know that you guys have talked about that with Beautiful Feet.
Yep.
How that has changed because of different city ordinances, state ordinances, and it changes, and being able to submit to those governing authorities while also continuing to figure out opportunities to serve that group of people. And I think I've got one more question for you, because I think this is something that a lot of times will pop up with someone. They may not be directly, usually not directly involved in like a street ministry like you are, but, they kind of wrestle with that internal structure of, how do I help? What do I give? How do I come along someone? Because you run those fears, right? We're in our sin nature. We're like, well, if I give them money, I don't know where that money's going to go, or do they really need this resource or that? How do you talk to someone as, whether they're coming to get involved in a street ministry or just on their own, looking for that opportunity to serve someone that's in a, homeless situation? How would you advise or encourage someone to rethink some of that?
It's tough because, we struggle with the same questions.
Yeah.
We talk about it, while we're out on street. Number one, if a new person comes, we have a rule. We do not hand out money.
Sure.
We do not want to be known for handing out money.
Yep.
Has it happened? Yes, there's an exception to every single thing that we do, but it's rare. We struggle with enabling by continuing to give. We do. Yeah. We personally talk about that all the time. And we, better lack of a better word, we come to grips with it. Was our number one goal is to provide God's word. That's why we're there. We use Jesus' model, kind of. He provided for them and then gave a sermon. We kind of flip that. We give a sermon and then do it. I think people would still listen to us if we handed out food. I've seen it happen. Sometimes we're about to run out food, and we'll do that, and we'll give them food first, because we don't want, if someone walks up, I can say, hey, I'm already out. But we do struggle with enablement. We do see people that ask for the same thing week after week after week. We do see people that we've come across instances where there's been some gang involvement, and they encourage the homeless to get stuff so that they can take it and sell it, like tents or nicer clothes. We try to hand out used stuff, but we get some pretty nice stuff sometimes. So we do struggle with that. But we just kind of put it in God's hands and say, if you would rather sell your sleeping bag to buy a meth, there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, that's right.
There are organizations out there specifically designed to help people get housing, to help people get health benefits, to help people get whatever they need. the person I mentioned that came out with us that was a police officer. He was working for Stew Pot. Jill, can't remember her last name, called us and asked us if he could join us to look for people at night that they may have missed. And he ended up staying with us for probably a year or two, hanging out almost every Wednesday night, and participating. So he, there are people that can help in specific needs. You just kind of have to define your goal.
Yeah.
And what do you want to do? That our goal isn't to help them physically, but to help them see that there's hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great kind of piece of that, and this has kind of been a theme of several of our serving things that we've talked through so far, is the idea of serving. It starts in our heart, in our motivation. What is our goal in that? And anytime, whether we're serving homeless community, we're serving our family, we're serving our church, whatever, there's always going to be those pieces of enablement, or things like that we kind of wrestle with. But ultimately, it comes back to us, and our job's not to fix all these things. Our job's to serve, and
that's
approach it kind of
that's
open
exactly
our
our attitude. We feel called to serve.
Yeah.
And, and all of our volunteers have different areas of strength that they can serve in. Some of them are extremely compassionate. I'm not a really compassionate person, but one thing that has particularly struck me is we're starting to get more young volunteers now.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's happening encourages me to enable these young people to serve. And so I feel like I'm serving the young people by allowing them to serve the homeless. I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but we all play a part.
Sure. Yeah. I only have one more question, and I think it's probably a good question to kind of start to wrap up on, is if there was a person that came to you and was like kind of on the borderline, they're like, I kind of want to help, but I'm not sure, like, what would you tell them to encourage them to serve in this particular way?
Sure. I would invite them out. And we do have a bus there's usually 5 or 6 of us on the bus, and we all joke around. We all have a lot of fun. You guys know Roy Robinson.
He's full of jokes.
He
carries them around everywhere with him.
And he's going to make every single person feel comfortable on that bus, as well as the other people that are on there. Everybody that we go with that I've seen is so friendly, so accommodating, so welcoming, and they will make you feel comfortable. And we always tell them, you don't feel like you have to do anything. You don't need to step off the bus with a 30-minute sermon prepared with answers for every question. Just come and watch. If it's not for you, like my wife, she's been there. It's not for her.
Yeah.
So she serves in the women's ministry at our church. Just come see us. Come visit us. We'll make you feel at home. Just experience it, see what it's like, and go from there. We had a guy has a church in Arkansas, north of Little Rock, reached out to us. He's been following us on Facebook for a while. Asked if he could join us last year. This year he asked us if he could join us again, and he came out with us last Wednesday night with some ministers in training for music, evangelism, and just regular ministers. They brought their wives and children. They brought music, and they were singing. We kind of just turned it over to them and said, y'all run it like you would a small church service. And I don't think anybody but him had ever been out in that atmosphere before. And I don't know. I mean, we would just invite them and say, come see what it's about.
Yeah.
And if it's not for you, we get it.
I love that idea of, like, not every place is a place where everybody should serve, but everybody has a place to serve somewhere in the church, in the community. And so if it's okay if it's not in this particular homeless ministry or in the women's ministry at church, there's a place for you to serve somewhere. And
we had one guy that was serving with us on our deacons team at once, and it really wasn't his place. He'd tell me over and over, but he ended up getting us a new storage facility. And after that, he went on to another ministry.
Yeah.
But he saw a need with us. Sometimes people will see it and say, hey, I'm not really for going out with you, but where can we help you? Can we help raise clothes, food, whatever? Can we do something to support y'all? So you don't necessarily have to be there. Maybe you could find another way to support a ministry, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, thanks again for coming and sitting down with us. It's very helpful to kind of understand Jackson Street Ministry and really, homeless ministry as a whole. And so, everyone who, as you listening to this podcast and as you maybe watching, and maybe God's wrestling, something in you, and you're thinking maybe homeless ministry is an opportunity to get involved, whether it's here locally with Jackson Street, we'd love to get you connected, or, as you're in the different communities you are, there is a homeless population. And, encourage you to reach out to maybe local churches or local ministries that are involved and find ways to get plugged in. And, as Tommy shared, if it's something you jump in, you give it a try and realize it's not for you, that's okay, but you've given it that chance. And then some of you might be listening and say, I want to give it a try. And you jump in and realize this is a specific area that God has equipped you and designed you for, and you find this kind of new place of ministry. And so we encourage you in that way. But as always, thank you for listening. Thanks for joining us on Better Things Ahead. Follow the show on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video of our podcast. Until next time, keep moving forward, because there are always better things ahead.